Batting fifth, number 5, first baseman, Albert Pujols.
Alright guys, Benny Bam here coming at you strong once again. Angels Baseball Addicts on YouTube this time, and what you're listening to is the ovation Albert Pujols received. First game back to St. Louis in 8 years since signing with the Angels in 2012. So big moment, kind of like the prodigal son returning home to St. Louis, one of the greatest players in franchise history, and that's saying a lot. Stan Musial also had 3 MVPs and also had 4 second place MVP finishes, so that is saying a lot. It's a little bit of game action there on the side for you guys. Obviously the Angels lost last night, so that was kind of the bummer of the night for the Angels anyway. But one of the really cool things is that we get another shot at it tonight. It's a weekend series, and tonight we are going to have a 2:15 game Eastern time, so it's actually kind of more of an afternoon game. It's Felix Pena versus Dakota Hudson. Obviously Ozuna pretty much single-handedly killed us last night, Ozuna, so no bueno there. But as we kind of look at the game last night, I mean, there were some positives. The Angels couldn't score with runners on base. That was one of the biggest things for them. And that's really what ultimately did them in. I mean, Cole Calhoun grounding into that double play really gave St. Louis momentum. You know, the Angels really had momentum up to that point. Upton struck out a couple times. It was like, what? But some of them were good pitches. Carlos Martinez came in and was completely out of control, but just happened to hit enough strike points that it was so out of control that it worked as a reliever for St. Louis. So, you know, good for him. That worked out for him, but it didn't work out for us. So, you know, Mike Trout had a couple hits last night. Still being Mike Trout. Still looks like he's relatively hot. Ohtani, obviously, with no DH in there. I was laughing a little bit. Obviously, we had a live Angels Baseball Addicts page on Facebook. We had a live in the group. Of course, there's a group and a page, not one or the other, but both. And we had a live look into the game. You know, it was interesting that the announcers for St. Louis apparently didn't realize. They were like, oh, Ohtani's going to stay in and play first base. It's like, no, he doesn't do that. He doesn't play positions, especially with a bum elbow. Not a bum elbow, but a recovering elbow that had Tommy John on it. He's hitting and that's it, you know. Scary moment last night for Mike Trout as he gets hit in the knee with a foul pitch, which is a strange occurrence. You would think that would happen more, but because of the angle of ball meeting a bat, it usually doesn't ricochet into the knee. It does sometimes, but it's usually, you know, more a lower or a higher trajectory, so that's why you see a lot of balls get fouled straight up and straight back and straight over this way and straight over that way, left or right, or pop straight up out into the field where it's an out, or that's why they have the infield fly rule, because that happens so much. You know, it was kind of strange. You know, you know, a lot of them wear feet and ankle and shin protectors because those are areas that are very vulnerable to ricochet from your bat, and that did not happen for the knee, obviously. So Mike Trout gets the knee hit, walks it off, walks around for a few minutes, refuses to come out of the game, gets on base, he sprints to first base, and then he was part of a rally for the Angels before it ultimately got killed. He had actually scored in the first on a Justin Upton double. He had scored from first base. So it just goes to show you the speed of Mike Trout and the grit and grind of a guy refusing to come out of the game, you know, when something like that happens. Of course, that run was before the knee got hit. So hopefully tonight we can build some momentum here. I mean, I feel like the Angels still kind of have momentum. JC Ramirez is on the 60-day deal, retroactive to June 19th. Cahill is still on the 10-day. Kevin Smith and Anderson Simmons are on the 10-day. Matt Harvey's still wishy-washy and around wherever. And so the Angels are going to have some decisions to make on their pitching staff pretty soon here. Which one of these guys is going to stay, and which ones, I have a sneaking suspicion that once they get Cahill or Harvey back and one or the other starts actually pitching okay, that they'll probably move Pena to the bullpen, which means that somebody in the bullpen now, whether it be Taylor, Cole, might get sent down. But you could end up seeing some guys released again. I know Puelo, to make room for Upton, that had to be done. We kept Goodwin, which, Goodwin really earned that spot. So that's good, obviously. Good is good. So, the Angels, when I look at the Angels, and when people ask me, they say, Benny, what do you think of this? I see all these pieces coming together. I see them merging together, really is what I do. And the reason for that is because Middleton's about to come back, Keenan Middleton. You add him to Buttrey and Robles at the end of the bullpen, you're going to be good. Cam is actually pitching better despite the fact that nobody wants to give him credit. Every time he makes any mistake, people go, well, it's because he had inherited runners on, and it's because he had this, and it's because he had that his ERA didn't balloon. And you know what, I get it, and some of that was awesome, just putting him in the wrong place and time, which a manager has to learn on his own, even though we all know that because we've been watching him with a different manager for years and years and years. But Cam Bedrosian, when we talked to Victor Rojas at Halo Heat, and he was talking about how he thinks Cam has really improved from year to year, and this year in particular, and fans aren't always really fair of that. As far as Albert Pujols, that was a genuinely great moment. A guy that deserves it, a guy that is no doubt, a first ballot Hall of Famer, a guy that's never been caught up in any of the PED or steroid or, the rub or the cream of the clear, any of that kind of crap nonsense. You don't doubt that Albert does it naturally. As his careers went on, his legs haven't been the same, and that's ultimately what made him such a good hitter, as a hand-eye coordination, obviously, knowing how to hit does. But his legs and his balance and his swing and all that. You heard them talking last night about how current St. Louis Cardinal and former Arizona Diamondback and MVP, perennial MVP, and MVP candidate Paul Goldschmidt models his swing after Pujols, and that they had talked about how those two had met for dinner, and it was a fantastic meeting that ended up going like 3 hours long when it was just supposed to be a little meet and greet, and they talked about hitting the entire time. So, as an Angels fan, you love all that stuff too, and it helps put it in perspective who this guy really was, because a lot of Angels fans just look at the contract and go, well, and there's so much more to it than that. His mentorship and so many other things are worth what we're paying him, even if his numbers may not be on the same level as a guy that's getting paid that, elsewhere or whatever. And there's only a few guys that are, but still. He was what Mike Trout's doing right now. Mike Trout and Albert Pujols, literally, if you look at their numbers, are very comparable as players, and I've posted articles about that. There's one called Back to the Future, the LA Angels edition. You can find within Angels Baseball Addicts, the page and the group. It's on halohangout.com, which I write for them and post it then for you guys. It's an exclusive that I do for Angels. I do all this stuff for Angels Baseball Addicts. I don't do it for anybody else. I do it for you guys and the exclusive members. There's also angelsbaseballaddicts.wordpress.com that has other exclusive articles. There's some older ones on there. You can go back and look at, when we first started, some of the ones that we were doing. It's kind of fun. I have some exclusive photos that I took at Angel Stadium and stuff on there too that you won't find anywhere else. So all these different mediums, and now YouTube obviously as well, which I've had for a while, but I just haven't really utilized it because we do Facebook so much, it just kind of becomes old habit to use that. So just continuing on with the, Pujols is an amazing player. He's probably a top 5 hitter all time. He's certainly a top 5 right-handed hitter of all time. And Mike Trout's on his way to do that too. And if not to be even better than that, depending on Trout's peaks and valleys and stuff for the rest of his career. If he can it's really more about just if he stays healthy. If he can stay healthy, there's no limiting him. And as he gets older and his speed declines and stuff, he can play first base, he can DH. He'll probably go through a phase where maybe he plays left field for a few years, maybe when he gets in his mid-30s, and then, maybe eventually he'll just become more of a straight DH because he can still hit even when he's not as fast. The dude can hit. His type of hitting, the way he swings his bat stuff doesn't, I don't really see that, disintegrating on him, because it's not dependent on anything really other than him just knowing what to do and how to do it and what to look for. And you see that with Pujols. He's still a tough at bat, even though he's not the same player. He's a little slower. He's, but he can still turn on one. And if he gets any inkling of what you're throwing him, I can guarantee you that a pitcher still is afraid of him, even now. And a lot of these guys weren't even in the major leagues when he was doing it before, obviously. So, a lot of really good stuff with the Angels going on, guys. Tonight's going to be another interesting game. Angels are now 39-38. They're 19-21 away and 25-13 when they're an underdog, which they are tonight. St. Louis is 39-36 now. We're in the National League. They have a 23-15 home record, and they're 18-22 when they're favorite. So the favorite underdog thing seems to kind of work in the Angels' favor on this one. We'll go over some other stats. Angels are now 10 games back of Houston in the division. But they're a little closer than that in the wild card, and St. Louis is actually third in their division. They're 2 games behind the Cubs and a half game behind Milwaukee. Cincinnati and Pittsburgh pulling up the rear, 4.5 and 6.5 games back behind them. The standings we'll get into in a second. Pujols had said it was pretty amazing. He said just pretty amazing, basically, when they asked him about his ovation that he received. And, I can only imagine the emotion that would have went through that. He was, there was, moments between him and Yadi Molina, and then between him and even the umpires and stuff that he hadn't seen in a while that are more National League-oriented umpires, and all that kind of stuff was just pretty fantastic. But, I saw the ingredients last night for the Angels still bubbling on the surface. They just didn't get the big hits when they needed them. But they're there. And that's something that in years past, we didn't have the ingredients exactly where we needed them in order for it to burst out. Right now, we've got all those ingredients kind of bubbling on the surface, and they're ready to burst out. Simba's going to be back very shortly. He still had a limp, so they had him do some Orem minor league rehab assignment on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then they had one of the trainers go down to take a look at him to check him off to say, okay, you're good to go, and he was going to be back for the game last night. And at least that was the initial plan, right? And then Simba ended up having a little bit of a limp that was detected by the trainer. Osmus was texting him, and he said, no, I feel fine, and stuff. But to keep him out, they're like, we're not worried about him playing one game. We're worried about him playing mini games, which is what's going to happen because they still have quite a few games left this year, right? Still have almost the whole season. Comparatively, they still have like 90 games left. So, getting Simba healthy completely is going to be good. I don't know that Regnifo is going to go back down because he's playing well and he can play a lot of different positions. You saw that last night. He shifted from from short to second. I think Tovar will probably be the guy that goes back down for Simba, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't see Tovar as being as valuable as Regnifo, but maybe they have a different opinion about it. And don't forget, guys, a lot of you guys that gave him a hard time about that CJ Cron trade. By the way, CJ is on the All-Star ballot. They got Regnifo and that versatility in their infield by getting rid of Cron, a guy they weren't playing anyway, because at the time they had Valbuena and Pujols at first base, and ended up going a different direction. Of course, at Valbuena, his production then fell down, and they ended up releasing him later on. And then, of course, he passed away in that tragic accident. Rest in peace, Luis Valbuena. Fantastic guy, fantastic Angel, fantastic Astro, fantastic player, period, in the major leagues. There was, a lot of cool stuff. The All-Star ballot just came out with some options. They have a new way of picking the All-Stars, so now there's like 3 finalists at each position, and then you have to vote in a starter, and then they announce the reserves, and it's this weird kind of bumbly thing that I'm not really sure about. I don't think a lot of people understand the process yet. So you go on and you vote for a starter. Among the people that you can vote for are Tommy La Stella and Mike Trout, so they've made it onto those final 3 ballots for their positions. So go on there and vote for Tommy La Stella, Tommy Boy, and Mike Trout, the phenom, right? So vote for those guys, and hopefully they get in. They haven't announced the pitchers yet either. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe as a relief, I don't think there's any starters that would be on the docket for the Angels, especially because even the ones that are good haven't pitched much this year. So Ohtani as a DH did not make it. We were trying furiously to get him on with a lot of the balloting, and it just didn't happen. So, yeah, guys, stay tuned for that game. It's a 2:15. It's an early one today, 2:15 Eastern. That's going to be, 11:15 in the morning on a Saturday on the West Coast. So check it out, guys. Stay tuned for more. Let me give you some other stuff real quick. Let me give you the updated wildcard standings, because even though it's still kind of early in the season, ultimately it's good to know where you stand, and it's good to to know what kind of competition. So right now the Angels are 4 games back in the American League wild card. So Tampa Bay is up there, which obviously we just split a series with. The team below them that we're actually technically 4 games behind is Boston. Then you've got Cleveland, Texas, and Oakland. So a couple of those teams are in our division, which you go, oh, well, that's not good. Actually, that is good, because it means we have a lot of games with them directly head-to-head where we can make up ground relatively easily. Of course, if we lose those games, then you also, fall very quickly out of that. We're also, Chicago White Sox are also tied with us right now. They're a game below 500. But they've played a couple less games than the Angels have. And then you've got Seattle about 9.5 games back now. They've fallen out. And Oakland's 2 games back. Texas is 1.5 games back, and Cleveland's 1 game back of Boston. And then, of course, there's 2 wildcard teams now. Don't forget, there's 2. So you don't just have to. You can get in as the second one, and then you play the 1-game playoff to get into the divisional round in the American League Championship Series. That then spawns the winners of those series going on to play in the American League Championship Series, which then spawns the winner to go on as the pennant winner in the American League to face the pennant winner in the National League after their NLCS and NLDS. So that's how that works. And if you guys have any more questions, concerns, comments, want to know other things, let me know. Again, guys, Angels Baseball Addicts, it's the page on Facebook, it's the group on Facebook. It's angelsbaseballaddicts.wordpress.com. You can see articles from me on all of those, and halohangout.com under Benny Bam. And you can always check us out here on YouTube.